Hello, can you hear me? All right.
Hello.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can't see anybody. Art's going to be on this, isn't he?
Yeah, he's coming.
Okay.
Yep, just set up we're just setting him up.
All righty. I'm turning my phone off then.
All right. Yeah, excellent. Let's see. We have a microphone um, that's supposed.
Oh, I can't hear you at all now, Jess. You just went away.
How about now?
Now I can hear you.
And is it fairly clear or?
Yep,
Okay, hang on. I'm going to move over to a different area. How about now? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you and I can see you.
Hello. And
Hello.
is the sound quality any better or worse than it was a minute ago?
It's better.
Oh, great. Okay, super. Excellent, excellent. Okay. Grand. All right, how you doing?
I'm doing okay. Doing okay.
Good. Good, good. I'm so sorry I ghosted you last night. We life got in the way.
Yeah, that's okay. I was really tired. I was ready to call it quits. So
Okay.
might have been a good thing. Um, I saw that I could uh, get on, so that was good.
Good.
Got my PowerPoints and I could share my screen, so that was good.
Awesome. And can you share it now with us?
Yeah.
Here, let me see.
Okay.
Hey, look at you. Good job. That looks great.
So okay. So
Victor.
I'm gonna stop sharing until we start.
Victor, what's going on, baby? Can you hear me? Oh, no.
He's got earbuds in. Sometimes people with earbuds can't hear. I don't know why.
Hmm. Victor, you're a good looking man. Respond accordingly. Nope.
He's definitely not hearing you.
I'm gonna go get Art.
Melinda, how are you?
Good morning, Victor. There you are. We were talking about you. Jess was talking about how good looking you were,
Oh my
and
gosh.
there was no reaction. So we go, yeah, clearly he's not hearing this conversation.
It takes one to know one, Jess.
You big stud.
So Victor, you had the earbuds in, right? And you couldn't hear with those in?
Yeah, I was trying to connect to my Bluetooth, but I figured
Yeah.
I'll just close the door. It's easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kept trying to connect to my phone, and yeah, it's not worth it.
Got it.
Hmm.
Good morning, everyone.
Hello, folks.
Good morning.
Good. I see that John Turnipseed's there. John, you received a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Fathering Program. Talk to us about that.
It's a lifetime, it's an elder award. It was given to me by an African group. They sort of made me an elder in the fatherhood movement. So it's a national group. I had no idea that they were going to give that to me.
When did you get it?
It's been about 2 weeks now.
Okay.
They invited me to speak at their national gathering, and I spoke, and then they gave me that award as an elder, which was quite an honor in the African community.
Sure. Great. Now, do I see Brian Brown there?
Yeah.
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Okay, where are you right now?
I'm in my office in Des Moines.
And you have it full of books back there.
I only been here for a short time. Not yet. It's only
You are an academia person.
yeah, it's for sure.
You're a librarian.
In time.
In time. Okay. And hello, Melinda.
Good morning. Good morning.
And do I see over on the right-hand side, Travis? Who's that? Victor. Victor,
What's up? How you doing, Art?
how you doing?
Very good, thank you.
Good. Good to see you.
Same.
When's the best time to get in touch with you?
Um,
Could we talk this afternoon?
I'm available this afternoon. I was just gonna say that I've got a I've got a walkthrough at 1 o'clock, so I'll be cutting out of here probably a half an hour before we're due to end. And then I'm available, say, anytime between 2:30 on, if that works for you.
I got it. I'll be calling you, okay?
That sounds perfect. Yep.
Good. Dejan, you're on. Good to can't see you, but we hear you.
I'm here.
Hello.
Hello.
And yes.
Here we go.
Good morning.
Good
And
morning.
is that Kenneth?
Hey, how's it going?
Good. And Huda. Hello, Huda.
Hey, I'm here.
Yeah. Okay. Good. And Akeem. We're trying to. What does Akeem say? Oh, he said I still didn't receive the email.
Tell them to look for Jess's name instead of yours.
Let me just say, look for Jess's name, not
Yeah.
mine,
It's not under art.
period. It is not under Art, comma, but it is under Jess. Okay, send it to him. Thank you. Okay, Amber. Wow. Now Amber's at a conference, so she's checking in with us. That's good. Okay. Now, who else just checked in?
Travis
Is that
just joined.
Hi, Travis from Des Moines, Iowa.
Des Moines. The S's are silent.
Des Moines. Yeah, right. Okay. Good. And who else has checked in? Okay, Sina.
Good morning or
Good
afternoon.
morning. John, do you want to just check people in?
Yeah, just a second. Checking out some stuff. Okay. Let me pull this up so I can see names, so I don't. Come on, energy. There you go, participants. Okay, we're checking people in just to see how their week went. Just a short check-in. We'll start with Sina.
So just short check-in to see how my week went. Week has been good, actually. Productive, a lot of meetings with the organization that I work with. Let's see here, what else? I'm not sure what else you need for the check-in, but it's been good.
That-
Did you get your earrings in?
I did. I looked at the camera. I was like, ooh, I need my earrings on.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Victor?
Hey, guys. My week has been strong thus far. I had an opportunity to sit down and put some thought into my mission statement and my goals and my peanut, which was nice. And so I've made some headway in that arena. I'm looking forward to meeting with you, Art, this afternoon. Sorry I missed you.
Yeah.
It's been a busy time.
Yes.
But otherwise, just working and handling responsibilities and both my work life and personal life.
Okay.
Well, thank you. I want everybody to hear that he's working on his peanut and his mission statement and things of that nature. It's a good time for the rest of you to be working on it too. Brian?
Yeah, so good week. Definitely a learning curve as I continue to transition here at the church here in Des Moines. I had the privilege this past week to head over back to Columbia, visit with my family for a little bit. So I'm kind of inspired and ready to go. Looking forward to this session as well.
Okay. Travis?
Hey, everybody. Week 2 for me on the new job as well. So to Brian's point as well, just kind of a little bit of a learning curve and really enjoying it, meeting the new team and getting to know a lot of the participants we get the opportunity to work with.
Hey, Art, I have to take this call. There was a killing in the family last night. I just real quick. Hello, this is John. Hey. Yeah. Oh, okay. I'm doing a class. I'll be there as soon as possible. All right. Yeah, there was my wife's, one of her nephews was killed last night. We were up since 2 o'clock. So right after this class, I'm going to go over there. They're asking me to come over and pray for the family. So anyway, things happen. Let's go to, I got Travis. Dijon, like the mustard.
Yep, just like the mustard, it's also city in France. But it's been a good and productive week. Like Victor was saying, that just kind of work on his peanut. I'm still kind of figuring that out, but I feel like God's been pouring into me and kind of giving me more insight on what that is. So yeah.
Okay, well, thank you. Let's see, I got Brian. Janice. Oh, Melinda, how's your week been?
My week has been intense. So most of my work these days is with Russia and Ukraine and those there. And
Oh,
so it's been tough 7 months.
all right. Huda.
Hey everyone, this is Huda. I think this week it's not an easy week for me, especially since I actually shared with Art. I'm transitioning from Oasis to Metro Youth Diversion. So more of like what I've been studying in school, of like the chemical dependency side of things and medical side of things, and supporting people in that manner. So it's been extremely hard because I have, and my coworkers have told me this before too, I have like compassion fatigue. I care so much, where that is like the one thing that I focus on.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
wrapping up some of those things are like the most hectic thing in my life at this moment. But tomorrow is my last day. So it's just kind of like the happy but sorrow goodbyes, you know?
Yeah.
So as far as my peanut, I think I have a better understanding of like what my peanut is and some of those things. But I don't know if I have a mission statement yet.
That's just,
Yeah, and we just want you to be thinking about it because we're going to be hitting it in a week or two, a little bit more. And
Mhm.
yeah, that's going to be part of your final project. So everybody
Okay.
get on it. Millie,
All right.
Hi, good
hey,
morning.
hey,
Sorry for connected late. Sorry.
happy birthday, Nellie.
Thank you so much, Art. Thank, thank you so
John, we
much.
better get going. Melinda's
Yeah.
Melinda's on a 1 hour level here today, right, Melinda?
yeah.
I am, but I mean, I can, yeah, I do have till 12:30.
Well, I think we're done.
Okay, we got
Unless
Akeem coming, but he'll come in, and so Larry wants to get in too, so we're just trying to get the connections here.
Yeah, well, we could go on with the class. I'm a little distracted right now. My phone is.
You what?
I'm a little distracted right now. So.
Oh, okay. Then
Yeah.
we'll get on with one of the things that we are very, very, very think is very important is as we do the trades, as we do the community, as we do our different things, as we're talking about being transformational leaders, mental health is one of the biggest add-ons that we have to give. So, Melinda, share with us quickly what your background in mental health is and what your history in Russia has been.
So real quickly, I am a mental health psychotherapist, and I've worked in many different spheres from nonprofit to private practice, churches. For the last actually 30 years, I've been working primarily with Russian orphans that have aged out of the state system and developing residential programs for them. So lived over there for more than a decade and been traveling back and forth, raised all of our kids there. And also stateside work with a lot of foster and adoptive kids.
Okay. So you're gonna work with us today on some mental health issues and tools.
Yes.
Okay. How would you like to begin?
Well, I can just start. So you all should have a packet that Art sent in the email. And if you don't have that, I'm sure you will be getting it. So I'm just gonna kind of give a 45-minute lecture a little bit. We're gonna just talk this morning on trauma and mental health. And I don't know if there will be time for follow-up questions in this time, but if not, then I want to make myself available for later on to have any questions or follow-up calls.
Okay.
So
that email would have come from Jess, not from me.
yeah, yes.
Okay. Then go ahead. You're gonna work with us on the slides.
Yeah. So I have my notes that I'll share my screen too, but first to just tell you just a little bit more of my personal background. So professionally, I'm a therapist, but I'm going to talk to you this morning about trauma and mental health. And I also have my own personal experience in trauma. And so I grew up in a town south of Detroit in the 60s at the height of the civil rights movement and the height of the Vietnam War protests. That tells you how old I am. And it was a lot of racial violence and tension in the town that I grew up on. A lot of violence, black on white, white on black. And my very first memory when I was 4 years old was being woken in the middle of the night to my mom screaming and grabbing all of us kids together and pulling us into a room and looking out the window at a mob of young black men walking down our street with torches and standing in front of our front yard with torches. That's my very first memory. A couple years later, I was beat up and my arm broken by a group of 4 teenage Black guys. And that is when my mom decided that we were moving. So my brothers got beat up all the time, and I'm sure that they beat others up. That was just kind of life. But when their little girl got beat up, that's when they decided to move. So later on, I lost both of my parents tragically, in a tragic fashion, 28 days apart from each other. My nephew was killed when he was 18. I moved to Russia with my husband when my daughter was 14 months old. And that was the time when communism had just fallen and Russia was in utter chaos. It was absolutely lawless. It was run by the mafia, and we happened to live in the building with the Russian mafia godfather. He was one flight up from us. And so my kids grew up having to learn how to pay attention to whenever he was coming in the building or going out of the building, because that's when the mobsters would get taken out. They would blow up the building or blow up the entryway. So my kids learned very, very young age to be able to discern and to run from this violence. So my daughter, my oldest daughter, had a gun pointed at her head because she was speaking English on the street. One day they showed up at their middle school with 2 dead bodies in front of the door, naked, shot execution style in front of their door to step over to go into school. So this is how my kids grew up. So personally, I'm not a stranger to violence, to poverty, and to being a foreigner, to being a minority, to not speaking a language. I've lived that life. So we all have different stories. None of our stories is the same. But what is the same is that we all have experienced trauma, all of us. It's a part of life. And that trauma impacts us depending on the extent of it, when it happened, how chronic it was. There are some predictable ways that it impacts us in body, soul, and spirit. And understanding this is going to be one of the most important things that you understand as you walk into leadership and lead others. So I'm gonna try to share screen. And John, I understand you gotta go. I'm so sorry. So, okay, can you guys see this screen here? Art, can you see it?
It's small.
Can you put it in the slideshow view?
Is that better?
That's better.
Yeah, it's better.
That's better.
Yeah, I wish I could get the. I wanna
There's a
be able
tab
to
up
see.
top that says slideshow. Click in the middle of the, up a little bit and to the right.
I need to get the view to just me. There we go. Okay. Is that better? If I can do that, hang on one second. Let me do this. How's that? Is that okay?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay. Okay, so let's start here. And yeah, we'll just do the best that we can. Okay, so when we're talking about mental health, how does mental health develop? Okay, and so I want us to think about for a minute, we're talking about mental health, the health of our mind. What is our mind? So our mind comprises the 3-pound organ, the physical organ that is in our skull. but it also comprises the metaphysical, our thoughts, emotions, and will, right? That's what we mean when we talk about our mind. And our mind is what the Bible uses for the word soul. So it's very interesting when we're talking about mental health, we're actually talking about soul health. Mental health is very spiritual. Okay. So how does this develop? Well, it develops out of our experiences. Okay. And so I want to focus on our very earliest experiences, the first 3 years of our life, because that is when the foundation of our brain and bodies are being developed. So before I go any further, I want to say some of this stuff can be really hard and intense to hear. But what is really beautiful is to know that the Lord has designed us so that we can be healed. All right, there is hope. So as we talk about this, keep that in mind, that He has designed our brains and bodies to be healed. Okay, so let's look at this circle, and we can think about, we all have needs, right? Our first 3 years of life, let's think about the needs that we have as a little baby. We obviously have physical needs of food, clothing, shelter, and all those needs. But we also have emotional needs, like being held and touched and played with and delighted in and comforted. And those things are easy for us to minimize in ourselves, and also, you know, especially in children. It's easy to minimize those. So when Art and John and I were growing up, the conventional wisdom of the day and all the parenting strategies said that emotions in the kids were really not important. If you just met their physical needs, that is really what is all that mattered. And so there was a researcher that wanted to do some research. Let's see, I'm going to go to this page. Yeah, okay, there was a researcher named Harry Harlow. He was from the University of Wisconsin, and he wanted to understand if that was really true. Do kids only need physical needs? Because he thought that they needed emotional needs as well. And so nobody had ever studied this before him. And he designed this groundbreaking research where he took rhesus monkeys as soon as they were born, and he separated them from their mothers. And he put them in these cages. Can you guys see this picture?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So he put them in these cages with 2 surrogate mothers. The one on the left is a wire, just a wire frame there. And on the top, you can see maybe right in there was where there would be a place for a bottle of milk. And so this would represent if babies were more concerned about getting their physical needs met, this is where that baby monkey would hang out, on that mother. The mother on the right had a soft, fuzzy terry cloth around the wire and a face. So this would represent if the baby was more concerned with emotional needs, that's where the baby would hang out to get warmth and comfort and a sense of connection by connecting even with that, those eyes and that face. So what they found out was actually shocking and astounding to everybody. Nobody expected this. But those babies hung out on those soft terry cloth mothers for up to 22 hours a day. They would only go over to get the physical food when hunger took over in them, and then they would immediately go back to those mothers. And so that began to help people understand this was groundbreaking, and this was the first time that we began to understand the importance of meeting emotional needs, especially for children. And emotional needs, meeting the emotional needs of us as human beings is actually as important as food, especially to babies in the first 3 years of life. If we don't meet emotional needs, babies will actually die. Okay, so let's go back to this circle and let's look at this. So when babies have needs, they only have one thing that they can do, and that is to cry. So that is very important moment. That cry of a baby is their voice. That is all that they have to get respect, to have power. That is their only voice, is their cry. So let's go down the right side here first, and we'll look at this, and we'll go, if the cry of that baby is attended to by their caretaker, if it's listened to and attended to, those needs are met in an adequate and predictable way. And by that, I mean, by adequate, I mean the baby is not sitting in soiled diapers for hours or days like some of the kids that I work with. They're being fed until they're full. They have the right amount of clothing on so they're not too hot or too cold. That is being adequate and predictable. The baby needs to learn that when they cry, someone is going to come and take care of them. Okay. So if they are crying and those needs are met adequately and predictably, what kind of beliefs and perceptions are going to be developed in that baby? Now, when we talk about beliefs and perceptions, we're talking about our stories. What are the stories? What is the understanding that this baby will learn about themselves, about others, and the world? Okay, if they cry and their needs are being attended to, the belief and perception that they have is going to be that they are valued, they're worthwhile, they're loved, they're delighted in, they're important, that the world is predictable, other people are safe and they can be trusted. Their voice matters. They have some power, some agency. So our beliefs and our perceptions are one of the most important things about us, because everything else flows from this. And our beliefs and our perceptions get hardwired. We'll see this a little bit later as we're talking, but those get hardwired into our actual brains. It's our neural system, our infrastructure of our brains and our bodies, and everything else flows from this. This is the basis for our identity, our ability to trust, and our self-esteem. Okay. So if your needs have been met, and let's think about when we go back and we talk about the needs and the baby crying, this is happening in the first 3 years of life, tens of thousands of times, right? Thousands and thousands of times a week, these babies are crying. And the question that they have without knowing it, the unconscious question is somebody going to pay attention to me and attend to my needs and meet my needs? So if that happens, the value, the love, they're delighted in, all those beliefs and perceptions are being hardwired in. Emotions flow from that, of joy, resilience, hope, motivation. Okay. And from our emotions, our body and our brains follow our emotions. So when the baby cries, they have a need, they're up here, they're crying, their bodies are stressed. Think about a baby crying, their heart rate becomes elevated, their muscles become tense, their little fists are clenched, their jaw is clenched, their lungs open up to cry, their tears flow down, okay? And so when those needs are met, their bodies relax, the tears stop flowing, their heart rates go down. And that becomes the basis for them to be able to self-regulate. They learn muscles tense, muscles relax. The brain, when it is stressed, it is flooded with stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. When those needs are met, the brain gets flooded with calming hormones like dopamine and serotonin. And so again, that cycle is completed thousands of times. The baby cries, the stress hormones flow, the needs are met, calming hormones flow, and that creates a balanced brain chemistry for mental health, for good mental health. Whoops, where'd I go there?
Down to behaviors.
There we go. Okay. And so then from that flows our behaviors. Okay. And if your story is this story on the right, your behaviors become behaviors of openness and connections. You're more resilient and flexible. Okay. So now let's go back up to the circle and let's go on the left side. So what happens if that baby cries? They have these needs, whether the needs are physical or emotional, whether they're hungry, tired, bored, scared, hurt, whatever. And those cries are not attended to adequately or predictably. Now that can happen for a lot of reasons. When a mom is a single mom and she has a lot of kids, it's really hard to attend to those needs on an adequate or predictable way. When she's working and trying to take care of the kids, it's really hard. If you don't have enough resources, if you were raised by parents with substance abuse issues or their own mental health issues, it's difficult for them to have attended to your needs adequately or predictably. So what happens then? What are the beliefs and perceptions that this baby learns about themselves? Because they're crying and those needs are not being attended to adequately or predictably. So what gets hardwired in their infrastructure is that I am not valued, I'm not important, I'm not worthwhile, the world is unpredictable and unsafe, I can't trust others, I'm alone, I need to take care of myself, and my voice doesn't matter. Okay, that's very, very important. So what are the emotions that flow from that? Those beliefs and perceptions. Well, the emotions of fear and helplessness, anger, sadness, apathy. Okay. What happens in the body and brain? Well, if you are crying and your needs are not being met, your body never has an opportunity to relax in the world or to calm down. So your body and brain are left in a state of chronic distress. So your muscle tension will be really, really tight. If this is just normal for you, you might not even realize it. until once you begin to pay attention to it. You might be, when people bump into you or touch you, you have a trigger response, and you just can flip off, and you're like just wound up tight all the time. That's your body is in a state of chronic distress. If your brain is flooded with stress hormones all the time, you have a very short trigger. Okay. So it's difficult. You don't know how to self-regulate yourself. This impacts all of your health. It impacts your immune system, your muscle tension, heart issues, gut issues. All of those things are impacted. And the behaviors that flow out of this are fight, flight, and freeze. You become very closed and rigid. Now, there's a really important and interesting other research that I want to mention here. There was a guy named Martin Seligman who also did research in the late 60s on what we now term learned helplessness. And what he did is these research experiments would never be allowed today. But what he did is he took dogs and he put them in cages, and he would shock them, give a little electrical shock. And of course, they would bark and yelp and jump up, and he would increase that shocking to where it was a higher rate of, electric shock, higher, higher, higher. And these dogs would get more agitated, of course, bark louder, try to get out of the cage. Their paws would be bloodied. It was horrible, horrible, horrible. Until they finally stopped barking, and they would just lay in a heap in the corner of the cage, and then he would stop shocking them. At that point, what he did is he opened the cage door. And what do you think happened? Those dogs did not come out of that cage. Those dogs stayed in a heap in the corner of the cage, even though they were no longer being shocked and the door was open. He went a step further and he put food out in front of the cage to try to entice the dogs to come out. They still did not come out of those cages. The only way that those dogs came out of those cages is when a researcher went into the cage and comforted the dogs and actually physically brought them out of the cage and showed them that the door was open and they were safe. That is a powerful, powerful experiment.
Melinda, can I share something quickly?
Yes.
I'm connected with a situation in Medellin, South America, Medellin, Colombia, where a young baby was abandoned at 3 months, 3 days by the mother. She left the hospital. So they take the babies that are abandoned like that, and they put them in a nursery. So there was a nursery of 50 babies that were in their little beds that were abandoned, and they would just leave them there, feed them, and just leave them there. Now, two things happened. Sometimes they died.
Yes.
They gave up. Other
Yes.
times they went to be nuns in the Catholic Church. This is a real story.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the kids was visited by a missionary once a week for a half a day, where she picked her up and loved her and sang to her and did all that emotional thing. Only a half a day a week for about 16 months. And then the baby was adopted, and she is now 50 and has 3 children and a working mother, and,
Yes.
and doing much better. But it just took somebody for a little while to go in there. Otherwise, they just give up.
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
That's exactly right. Okay, so let's just look a little bit more. This is important to understand. I'm going to try to do this here. Okay, so to understand 3 areas of our brain that are really important to understand. So this first back part, can you see my cursor on the screen, Art?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so right there, this lower part is our brain stem. And this is the part of our brain that is fully functioning at birth. It's fully formed, and it is responsible for all of our unconscious survival functioning. Okay, our digestion, heartbeat, all of that stuff. We don't know, we don't pay any attention to it. It just is happening. All right, and it keeps us alive. The second part of our brain in here, this limbic part of our brain, this is the part of our brain that is exclusively working, well, these 2 parts, but this is the part that is exclusively developing the first 18 months of our life, this limbic system. And this part of our brain is non-verbal, right? Babies don't have words. It's non-verbal. It is taking in all of the sensations that are happening around us 24/7. All right. All of everything we are seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, touching. And it interprets all of those sensations. It interprets them whether we are safe or unsafe, whether those are good sensations or bad sensations. And it stores them permanently. Like we have an iCloud in our brain, and it's right there in this part, in this section of the brain. So everything that has ever happened to us is stored subconsciously, non-verbally in this part of the brain, our cloud. Okay. And it regulates our stress response. And we'll talk about that in a second. This part of our brain, our frontal cortex, this is the part of our brain that makes us uniquely human. And this is the part of the brain where we learn, where we have self-regulation, where we have abstract thoughts, where we are creative, language, our ability to have social interactions, planning, organizing, all of that stuff, long-term memory, moral judgment, all of that is in this part of the brain, our frontal cortex. So when this part of our brain, our limbic system, when it is interpreting all of these sensations and it interprets that we are being threatened. So it could be that someone is going to harm us. It could be, think of a baby who's hungry, like those babies that you're talking about, Art, and they're not being fed. The baby is going to interpret that as a threat, right? There's all kinds of things that that part of the brain will interpret as a threat. When our needs are not being met, it definitely interprets that as a threat. And it will, it's like a fire alarm that shuts off access to our frontal cortex. This is really, really important to understand. Because when it shuts off access to our frontal cortex, that is a God-given design for us to respond to crisis. It's meant to respond to crisis in a moment so that we can respond instinctively, immediately, without thinking. Okay, we just have those lower 2 parts of our brain. And so we respond without even thinking. If we're functioning out of our frontal cortex, we're thinking. And if you need to react to a crisis and you are in this part of your brain, it actually could cause you to be killed or to die. It's not a time to think and organize and plan. It's a time to run or fight or respond. But when this part of your brain is shut off permanently, when you are living only out of these two parts of the brain, you can see the problem. This is why kids who have a very difficult upbringing, this is why kids who have a hard beginning, this is why our foster care kids have tremendous difficulty learning in school. They are living out of these two parts of their brains, and they don't even have access to the part of their brain that they need to learn. So learning is compromised. Your ability to attach to other people is compromised because you are stuck fighting or fleeing or freezing. It's not safe to connect. Your memories are impacted. You know, long-term memory is in the frontal cortex. So if you're living out of this part of your brain, the lower two parts, it's very difficult for you to have a coherent sense of yourself and your story. It's like there's just all these puzzle pieces that are kind of floating around, but they're not one coherent story that you can make sense of. So your perceptions of yourself, your identity are very skewed. And so that's what happens with trauma. And this, let me just mention this. This happens to us if we come from hard beginnings and our needs are not being met. This is what happens. We shut off access to our frontal cortex. It also can happen anytime we have trauma or are in a threatening situation, anytime throughout our life. But again, the way God designed this is that this is a momentary thing, that when we're in crisis, we shut off access to our frontal cortex so that our bodies can respond instinctively to the crisis. And then we go back to this picture where we're using all three parts of our brain. That's the way it's designed. So when we are stuck in this part of the brain, where we are shut off from our cortex, the only way to get back to the frontal part of our cortex is by being in safe relationships and safe environments. It's like those researchers going into the cages and bringing the dogs out. It's like the missionary that you talked about, Art, showing up and holding those babies. So it is finding safe people and safe environments, or becoming those safe people and safe environments for other people, that allows us to heal one another and get out of this type of brain and go back to our whole brain, or our integrative brain, where we're functioning completely. Does that make sense?
What do the rest of you think? Does it make sense? If you're talking, unmute.
Makes sense to me.
Okay.
Okay. So
Thank you.
have,
Thank you for this imaging. This is very important. Yeah.
it is very important. And so the last 3 or 4 pages in your packet are some assessments that I want to encourage you all to do, because as leaders, we can only take people as far as we have gone ourselves. Okay. And so we need to become aware of our own issues and our own baggage, and be very intentional about pursuing healing and growth. this is a lifelong journey. I'm sure Art would agree with it. He's been on the journey a little longer than me, but I can tell you I am still very much on my journey of healing. I've seen a lot of progress, but there's still a ways to go for sure. So it's important, especially as you're walking into leadership roles, that you become aware, because your baggage, if you're not aware, will become an obstacle for you in leading others. Again, we can only take people as far as we have gone ourselves. So this first one is just, they're all pretty self-explanatory, and you can do those later. And I think Art and John will follow up with you on those. I want to mention one thing. The second sheet is called the ACEs study, ACES, and it stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences Survey. So this one is really important. You know, we all just, the way we grew up, that's all we knew, right? That's just how we grew up. So we thought our situation was normal. And it's only when we kind of get outside of the way that we've grown up and can look back and reflect on it, that we can think, well, maybe that wasn't so normal, or maybe that wasn't so healthy. And researchers have come up with 10 adverse childhood experiences that they have linked to all kinds of different health issues, very, very specific health issues. And so this is a very simple but a very important survey to take. And the higher the number that you have on this study, the more impact you will have on your physical, emotional, mental, and relational health. So this can be a difficult survey to kind of look in the mirror and be honest, but it's a very important one. And again, we're all on this journey. We have all experienced trauma, every one of us. This one, this I feel, I need, you'll find that also in the packet. And that simply helps us kind of think through, you can use this tool kind of historically in a general fashion and say, okay, well, in general, how do I feel? In general, what are the things that I need? Or you can use this tool in a moment if you're like stuck, and you can look down these words, kind of all these synonyms, and they kind of help you get in touch with what's really going on inside, and maybe what are some things that you need in the moment. So you can use it either in general or in the moment. And then the last but most important piece in there are just a few verses on what does God say about you. And it's the most important because we talked about our beliefs and our perceptions are so important. They out of our beliefs and our perceptions of ourselves, everything flows. And our Creator is the only one that can tell us the truth about who we are. And so most of us, really the journey is getting from what we really believe about ourselves to get our minds in line with what the Lord says about who we really are. That's the battle. And so I want to encourage you, there's many, many more verses. These are some that have been very important for me that I think are worth memorizing and meditating on. But those are what are truly important.
Okay, now Melinda, I think you go back to the ACE score. Go back to the A score.
Okay, There.
And I think we should take a piece of paper and you're gonna read them and we're gonna say yes or no, and we're gonna go down to 10. Just right now, quickly.
okay,
Would you read the first one?
yes. Okay, so everybody's gonna take a tally on their own?
Yes.
Okay, okay, so the first one, did a parent or other adult in the household often or very often swear at you, insult you, put you down, or humiliate you, or act in a way that made you afraid that you might physically be hurt?
Okay, now that's something that I would either put a yes or a no.
Correct. If you
So-
put a yes, just tally 1. Put a
Okay.
check mark.
For yes,
Correct.
and what about no? Don't do anything?
Don't do anything.
Great. What's the next question?
Did a parent or other adult in the household often or very often push, grab, slap, or throw something at you, or ever hit you so hard that you had marks or were injured?
So if you had a yes, that's a 1.
Correct.
Okay?
Did an adult or person at least 5 years older than you ever touch or fondled you or have you touch their body in a sexual way, or attempt or actually have oral, anal, or vaginal intercourse with you?
So a yes would be a 1.
Correct.
Okay, number 4.
Did you often or very often feel that no one in your family loved you or thought you were important or special, or your family didn't look out for, feel close to, or support each other?
So if that's a yes, you put another 1.
Correct.
If it's a no, you don't put anything.
Correct.
Okay, 5.
Did you often or very often feel that you didn't have enough to eat, had to wear dirty clothes, had no one to protect you, or your parents were too drunk or high to take care of you or take you to the doctor if you needed it?
Okay. Yes, 1. No, nothing.
Correct.
6.
Were your parents ever separated or divorced?
It's a 1 or no. Okay.
Correct.
7.
Did your mother or stepmother often or very often push, grab, slapped, or had something thrown at her? Or sometimes, often, or very often was kicked, bitten, hit with a fist, or hit with something hard? Or ever repeatedly hit at least a few minutes or threatened with a gun or knife?
Okay, it's a 1 or nothing.
Yep.
Number 8.
Did you live with anyone who was a problem drinker or alcoholic or who used street drugs?
Yes would be a 1.
Correct.
Number 9.
Was a household member depressed or mentally ill, or did a household member attempt suicide?
Okay.
And the last one is, did a household member go to prison?
Now they're to add up their ones, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I would add up my ones. Now what?
Okay. So then what I would encourage you to do, I could get this to you. So there's so much, this is the most researched survey that has ever been done, and it's been ongoing for now, I want to say 30 years. It's been done by Kaiser Permanente, the health conglomerate, and so they have lots of research that says, okay, if you have a 1 or 2, everybody has a 1. There's nobody who has a 0. Everybody has a 1. And so it's like, if you have a 1 or 2, these are some things that are associated with it. If you have a 4, these are other health issues that are associated. 5 or a 7 are other health issues, and then a 9 or a 10, other issues. So they have very specific things, and I can get that to you, Art, that you can get to other people. But again, the important thing to realize is that we can all pursue healing. We can all pursue healing. God has designed our brains and bodies to heal.
Well, I think what's important here is the major thing I have to have as a leader is self-knowledge. I have to know who I am before I can ever begin to discover who someone else is. Does
Correct.
that make sense? So as I discover myself, isn't this an important self-knowledge indicator for just me to know
Yes.
what I'm facing?
Yes.
Because if I can begin to work on this and understand this, then I can begin to help others as I begin to understand them.
Yes.
So we're self-knowledge to each other's knowledge. And we're beginning to build a fellowship of people that are trying to find healing and grow together and be together and be a family,
Yes.
be a fellowship,
Yes.
be a team. Does that make sense?
Yes. So
Other
when you
thoughts?
when you look at this, this is just my last comment. When you look at this ACEs study, you know, it gives you a little bit of a feeling behind when Jesus said, obstacles will come to the little ones, but woe to them by whom they come. Because he did not intend for children to be mistreated and to grow up with long-term consequences.
Right. Now, who's going to do this one?
It's at the end of this slide.
Okay, and she's doing that, right?
Yep.
Okay, would you go to the end of the slideshow?
That one?
Yes, yes. Now, you have to go now?
I am going to have to go here in 3 minutes.
Okay, I'm gonna show this, my self-esteem bucket. Would you raise it up a little bit?
Shrink the size.
Like that?
All the way up. Okay, right there. For every, now this is my self-esteem bucket. Everybody has a self-esteem bucket around their neck. And every time you get a compliment, it goes into the bucket. And every time you get a shaming or a depreciation, a degradation, it takes 7 of those out. So if I get a compliment, I get something in there and it keeps going in there. And every time I get a blame or a shame or a degradation, it takes 7 out. Now, do you begin to see the difficulty here? If I get affirmed, I have a full bucket. But if I get blamed and shamed and degraded, it's taken out. And the question is, how full is my bucket? Now we're going to come back to that. I just wanted, because you're going to leave, I just wanted us to see that. Because we'll talk about it at the end, okay?
Okay. All right.
Now, let's have any questions. She has 1 minute left. Anything you want to add or say to Melinda?
Thank you.
Hmm.
Very insightful.
Hmm. Okay.
It's a privilege, you guys. I really appreciate your time this afternoon. It's a privilege.
Thank you, Melinda. Now, hang with us here because John Turnipseed, are you with us?
No, you had to leave.
He left.
He had to leave?
Yes.
Okay. And he's
Yes,
not coming back?
No, I'll explain later.
No, he wrote that his wife wanted him to be with the family.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. Okay.
I believe they had a death in the family.
Oh, did they?
Yes.
I think so.
Okay. Okay, okay. Okay, thank you, Melinda.
All right, blessings, everybody. And if there's any questions that you have, feel free to connect with Art and to connect, somehow we can connect further. I'd be happy to do that.
Okay. Now, this is Art. We've got some more time here. John was going to speak for a half an hour, and he was going to talk about, what it was like coming up through the gangs, coming up through a family that 30 members are in prison for, 20 of them for life. What it's like to grow up in Crack Alley and Alexander Brothers pornography empire and all of that. And he was going to share his stories with this. We will do that another time because he is going to come on when we talk about violence in the city. And he is going to be with Tom Blee, who is a doctor over at Regent's Hospital under the emergency room over there. And that'll be another day. But I just want to go to what she was talking about today. And what did you hear? And what do you want to share out of what you heard and out of what you've experienced? Can we just have some dialogue on this? Does that make sense? Because this opens up a whole big thing. Now, Sina, you came from Ethiopia. And you came from you know what war is, don't you? You know what struggles are. Did your father have to escape from there?
Yes, my father had to escape, but I was really shielded from that. It was more the anguish that came from like just my mom worrying about certain things. It wasn't directly to me. So as I was looking at some of this, I've actually been fairly sheltered in my life, but I know of stories of others.
Okay. But this makes sense, doesn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. Makes a lot of sense.
Okay. And if we're working in an urban area, this is something that we have to know about because this is what we're confronting all the time. Okay. Okay, let's have some more people share.
I do have a question though. So
Yes.
when I looked at like the assessment and I
Yes.
saw does this make, like, I have a heart for people, but I have not necessarily gone through those hardships directly impacting me. So how does that, how do I relate at that level with others that have gone through this? I mean, I've heard stories, but me personally, I have had an amazingly loving family that, people around me that have supported me, but yet my heart is for the broken. But then how can I relate to those that are broken unless I have my own story, which is a lot different from what I'm hearing in the inner cities?
That's a very interesting question. And we're not going to dodge it. We're going to say, let's talk about that for a minute, because that's really important. Who else would like to share something about that?
That's an interesting take.
Okay, just a minute, Marquise. Let Victor go. Go ahead, Victor.
As somebody who has a pretty high ACE score myself, I've always tried to disassociate myself with those memories or those things that happened to me. I don't know if it's a way of trying to cope with it or move on. But I think that you being able to recognize that this, that, and the other is something that didn't happen in your life, but you're willing to listen and understand where people are coming from. I think that's the first step in being a leader, is listening to other people and taking different perspectives and understanding different upbringings.
Did the ACE score help you think things through, Victor?
There are things that I've thought about so many times my whole life. Seriously,
But it confirms.
Yeah, you revisit that stuff all the time.
Yeah. Marquise? Marquise? Marquise Bowie?
Yes. I would say it isn't really no way that you can experience that because you haven't been through it, but you can be a listening ear and try to seek to understand what others are going through. That's almost like comparing white people trying to understand racism. There's no way that you can ever understand that, but you can actually be an ally and stand with those that are going through different things. And sometimes it's just, walking beside them, behind them, and, helping them through their trying times and just being a listening ear.
Okay. Somebody else?
I just wanted to chime in, and I was going to say that, kind of piggybacking off of Marquise, it would be impossible for you to fully understand if you haven't been through it. You got several options that you could do. You could place yourself in the fire, for X amount of days, months, weeks, years, just to get the experience, just to get the detail, the inner workings on the situations. Or, with like Marquis said, you could just be completely empathetic. You know what I mean? Everybody has the same feelings and emotions, but the way those feelings and emotions are jarred is the difference. So we all experience the same feelings and emotions, but what you go through to experience those feelings and emotions is different. And that is where you would have to be somewhat empathetic to kind of understand. But again, it's not impossible to understand because there are some white people that understand racism completely, but you miss some things not being completely in it and being completely ground zero.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Someone else.
I'll just add that at some level, we're not necessarily trying to have oppression Olympics to where some has had it worse than others. We acknowledge that struggle is struggle, pain is pain, and there's different depths of our experience that informs us about our experience. I think that what I took away was that regardless of how much pain or struggle there's been, what Melinda shared is there's an opportunity. We're designed, she suggested that we're designed, our minds are designed for healing. And that takes resilience and courage to, and she did it from a faith-based perspective, so I could appreciate the scripture references, but it takes resilience and courage to get to that place of healing. And so whether the score is a low score or a high score, it's going to take some courage and some resilience to heal.
Okay. Trent? Is Trent still on? Okay. Travis,
Yeah, I was just coming off mute to jump in myself. I would agree with some of what's already been shared on probably some reasons that I don't chime into certain conversations is I don't always feel comfortable sharing, not having some of those lived experiences. So, one thing that going through the Finding Your Ace score quiz, I was down on around 2 or 3. I put 3, but 1 was off of perception, based on my perception of if I thought somebody was depressed in my family and my household, which was actually related to the alcohol usage. But I was actually just having this conversation the other day that because of my ACE score being lower and not having as many traumatic childhood experiences in a way, or maybe just how I perceived those challenges being different, I don't know, I guess it makes me question how I lead in those communities when I go into those communities to help, because I feel like I've been able to make an impact in the Oakland area when I lived in California, and I've been able to make an impact here in the Des Moines area, but I don't necessarily share the same life experiences. So just trying to understand them. But Art, I liked what you said about having to understand yourself before you can start to try to understand other people. So I do a lot more listening in those situations than I do maybe, talking. So.
Okay. Somebody else, Akeem.
I'll I'll just chime in again. I wanted to make a comment on what Mr. Brown referred to as like basically seeing who has the more trauma. And I don't want to confuse you on saying that. It's just being from the community. There is an ego that comes with this community, and a lot of people will not give you their ear to talk to you if they feel like you're not relatable. So I'm not trying to put you down to say, hey, if you haven't been through it, it's you can't do it. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if we want to be effective and we want this thing to work, there are certain things either you have to do or you have to create a relationship with someone that has. So like Miss Daga, she would be perfect because she could refer back to her mother and her father along her journey with trying to be empathetic with, an urban area or being familiar with, people that feel like they are at war. So she's not completely out, but just coming from the inside out and wanting to be effective, wanting things to actually work. Like, I don't want to just be a crutch. I want to be the cast for 6 months and you take it off and you get to doing your own thing. And that is where I was coming from with that statement. Not to say that, it would be impossible for someone, but I'm speaking on if we can be effective, or we can get these people to turn and do a 180. It's the reality of, hood kids that when you grow up and you don't have someone telling you what to do, you become arrogant within yourself. And it basically takes one to know one. And that's the only way that one will listen to one, is if you were once one, or if you know somebody that was once one and you can refer back and forth.
Appreciate that, Akeem, and I certainly appreciate that, and was not referring to obviously your comment, but I appreciate the clarity, and it takes all of us. There's some folks that just based upon as you said, our lived experience, we need everybody to be able to reach everybody, and but I certainly appreciate just you sharing that, and I received that completely.
For sure, and I just wanted to speak on your comment because I know there's a lot of people in here, and I didn't know if everybody understood where you were coming from with your comment also. So I just wanted to basically encourage everybody, this is what this panel is for. I'm not a privileged person, so I would need Miss Dagger to speak with a privileged person. Not to say that they don't have problems and issues too, because we all do. So I agree with you 100% that we all need each other. I'm big on community, and I'm big on it takes one to know one, and each one teach one. So
yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Somebody else. Kenneth?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I don't have much to add necessarily. I think I've appreciated listening to everybody's perspective. I think what's very important and something that I am learning is, what we were learning about today on just the emotional aspect of like people's trauma and what they've experienced in life. I think especially being in this area and being around a lot of people that like a lot of immigrants and just a lot of people that are coming from different backgrounds that, everybody comes in with their own story. And I think it's important to understand where they're at emotionally, so you can know how to reach out to them, so you can know how to approach them and how to relate to them in I guess in the most sensitive and just the best way possible. That would really help to serve them. So yeah, I guess that's what I would add.
Okay. I'm going to suggest something here that people that have high scores on their ACE test because they've been hurt a lot. Oftentimes, we'll gather with other people with high ACE scores. Let me just say this, sometimes they join gangs together of people with high ACE scores. Isn't a gang a group of people that have been hurt and they come together as a gang and then they hurt other people? Am I making sense? And then people that want to get away from that go out to communities where they live in gated communities and they have gates that keep people who are hurt out. You getting what I'm saying? Where I move to where I perceive people being, good people, my people, our people. And we have these sociological groups. Now, if I'm going to work with gang people or gang kids, or I'm going to work in an urban community, is it important for me to be a talker or a listener?
Listener, kind of like what I was just saying.
Okay. But you understand that a lot of people coming in are talkers. They're going to tell people what it is that they should do and be to be better, instead of listening and trying to unpack what they have gone through and helping them walk through a healing process.
I feel like you got to be both.
You got to be both what?
You got to be both a listener and a talker.
But what do you do first?
To be honest, it depends on the situation. Depends on the circumstance. For me, I do this actively in my high school. I do like a CPR. I pay attention to the scene. I assess the scene. And then from my assessment of the scene, I determine if I'm going to continue to listen or if I'm going to interject. And in this type of field, I feel like we should always want to interject because we are dealing with young minds that are being perverted. So we can't just sit back and listen because we already know that there's an issue. We just got to figure out what issue it is and then attack the issue because, like I said, it takes one to know one. So we've all been that kid in high school where, we've heard a rumor and then by the end of the day, it's completely different than what the first thing that you heard. So being someone that has been through that, I can almost tell there are signs, there are indicators that let me know, because I've been through it, lets me know what I'm dealing with. And then I'm able to talk. And I'm not just talking to talk, I'm talking the relatable talk, the things that they know that I know is right. You know what I mean? Because if you've been through a situation where, like the simple assessment, if you have 8, 9s or 10s or 7s and 6s, you've been through a lot. And that to me speaks that you've gone through, you've conquered those emotions, you've conquered those feelings. So you are someone that the community actually needs to help other people get through. So from my perspective, I feel like you need both. You need a heavy dosage of both.
Yeah. Interesting. So how do you start being a good listener?
Listening.
Go ahead, Marquise.
By being an attentive listener, not listening to respond, but listening to take in information. A lot of people talk because they want to say something. But people that really want to get a message have something to say, and that's the difference. A lot of people just like to hear their own voice.
Okay.
But you got to be an attentive listener so you can actually take in. Be slow to speak and quick to listen.
Okay. How would you start how do you start being a good listener? Where do you start?
I would say being present, you know, being
Being
present,
there,
being there,
being there.
not just as a task, but being there because you want to be there and you want to listen, and being okay with the silence too.
Okay. So I used to get to know high school kids by going to the lunchroom where they all sat for lunch, sit at a table and just sit and eat lunch with them to get to know them and listening to them and hearing them. And then when I came into this neighborhood, then I started going to the junior high. I even went to the elementary school and just listened to kids and built relationships by listening. Does that make sense? Now, where can you begin? How could you begin a discussion with somebody where you could listen to them? My first question that I ask a lot of people, and maybe I've even asked you, where are you from originally?
Recording in progress.
What was that? Okay. Where are you from originally? Did I ever ask you that, Sina?
You did.
What did you say?
I said originally from Ethiopia.
Oh, wow. Now, now where do you go from there in a discussion? Ethiopia, what city?
Addis.
Addis. And how did you get to be here?
Yeah, that was a long story.
Okay. But your parents.
Yes,
And where did you come?
Minnesota. Well, first Germany, then Minnesota.
Germany and then Minnesota. And where did you go to school?
Webster.
Oh,
And
so keep going. Webster.
Webster Middle School and De La
Okay.
Salle High School.
What high school?
De La Salle.
De La Salle. Anyone else go to De La Salle school? Okay. But you know some people that did go to De La Salle. Okay. And then after De La Salle, what did you do?
I went to community college, and then from there on went to St. Scholastica.
Okay. Now, do you see what I did? Do you see what I did? I started with where you from originally and just kept asking questions. And people build their lives from there. And then you say, well, what are you doing now? And pretty soon you end up in a conversation listening to people talk about their stories. And my wife has this observation. She's been around this a long time. She said, nobody ever asks you anything because they like to talk a little bit about themselves. Does that make sense? Because somebody's listening, and I'm not used to somebody listening. So when you listen, you hear a lot of things that are really important. And you're building trust, you're building a relationship. Does that make sense? Now, the important thing is you have to be there with them. So where are they? It can be on the street. It can be down at jail. It can be in the hospital. It can be in a school. It can be in the job. It can be in the elevator. Where are some other places that people are?
Say like community centers, rec centers, sports, games, that kind of stuff.
Workout facilities?
Sure. YMCA's.
YMCA's. On the bus?
Church.
Church? At a meeting?
Grocery store?
What, Angie?
Grocery store?
Grocery store. Absolutely. Down in Faribault, right?
Yep.
Okay, at the grocery store. At the Caribou Coffee Shop.
Exactly my thought.
Okay, or Starbucks. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get personal there. Okay, now, if you not around people, you aren't going to listen to them. You're not going to build a relationship. And if you don't ask questions, they're not going to talk. So you have to just be patient and keep pacing it and build a relationship. Now, is that helpful? How have you done that?
What was the original question, Art?
How have you done that? How have you gone out of your way to listen to people and build a relationship? And what's some stories that you've got as to how this comes out and they begin to share a little bit of their life?
Well, I work at a high school, and whenever I get a kid that has been sent to the office, you know, depending on the day, depends on my question. If it's around the first 2 class periods, I ask if they're hungry, if they've eaten something, what did they do the night before, if they play video games, if they sat on the phone all night. I start off my questions with simple things that will meet them on their level, so that by the end of the duration of the conversation that we are on the same level. I've uplifted this kid to a different level. Normally they're happy, and when I first get them, they're probably mad and angry about some things that they can't really explain, and I give them a platform to explain. Like you said, I just basically let them talk about themselves.
Okay. So you go to the high school where they are.
Yes, I do.
That's really important. And so you're working in the community and you're working with the high school kids in the community and you're beginning to get to know them. And they live all over the community, don't they?
Yes, they do.
Do you go out to their homes?
I do. I do.
Okay.
I like to, you know, ride around their neighborhood just to see their interactions, what they do outside of school, so I can understand the impact of why they're doing what they do in school.
So it's one thing to see them in a classroom or in the cafeteria, you know, or in the play yard. It's another thing to see them in their home or in their neighborhood around where they are.
Yes.
Because there's different kinds of places in the neighborhood and you're seeing what their environment is.
Yes, I am.
See, that's getting to know the community. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does in a way.
I think it's crucial. If you're going to transform a community, you have to know the community. And if you're going to transform the community, you have to know the community, but then you have to know the people in the community, and you have to get to know the people and where are they? You're taking high school kids and you're finding out where they are. You can go to the elementary kids, or if you're down in Faribault, you go to the grocery store. I'm just saying, you go to a place, you go to a church, but then you have to go out to the neighborhood from there. What did you do, Brian, back at Drake University? What did you do? What was your role?
Yeah, I was a coach in track and field, but also there was an event that was the Drake Relays was kind of a rite of passage for Iowans. It was a traditional event, over 90 years old. It was at the turn of spring, so the weather was changing, and the event allowed people to come out to an outdoor tradition of of celebrating sport. And so a lot of the grandmas and moms and dad came to support their grandkids or their son or daughter. And it was just a rallying cry. People came back for the event from miles around. So it gave an opportunity, a kind of a platform to engage. And so part of that was communal and engaging, whether it was the corporate community or the surrounding community. It just gave an opportunity to engage. And so took that very seriously and made myself available to know. For some, it was a celebration. For some, it was a nuisance. It was like, it was a lot of people, the parking was bad. It was just, so I had to understand it from all angles and make sure that I wasn't just looking at it from my perspective in terms of the event. And I think along the way, we talk about listening, truly figuring out what was beneficial, not only for the event, but for the community. And, try to provide opportunity for people to be engaged. So they felt like it wasn't just Drake's event, but as a community, they had a place and a space where they could be involved. And I think once, I was able to do that, not only in surrounding community, but throughout the community, it became something that regardless of your affiliation, if you were Iowa State or whatever, you felt like you could embrace this Drake University event because it became part of your event. So that took time. And lastly, I would say about it is just honoring the legacy folks. I came into an event that was already successful. So I didn't want to come in thinking it was then about me or about my thoughts, but going back and honoring the folks who had come before me, I think was very, very important. I think that is the way I approach the event.
So you used athletics to bring people together. It was called the Drake Relay.
Right.
You used an event to bring people together, and you got to know a lot of people around that, didn't you?
Yeah, sure did.
Because you were the event planner.
Right. But even in that art, I think you have a chance, even with an event like that, to either grow the level of influence or to erase it altogether. And it's not handed to you. You got to earn it you can't stay in the office and earn it. You got to go out and you got to let your yay be yay, your nay be nay. Don't overpromise and let your word speak for itself. And that takes time, because too many times, particularly with youth, people are in and out of their lives and they say a lot. And so they won't let you in if you're not consistent. And so I had to just give it time and be consistent. Yep.
Now, Travis, you use sports. He used track. You use sports to gather people, right? And events.
Yep. And I think I shared the basketball example last week. And since then, another cool development was the Drake football team actually just reached out. Their Ministry of Culture just reached out and asked if we could figure out a way to get some of the Drake football players into Des Moines Public Schools to read to classrooms. So, kind of outside the sports, we did the youth basketball clinic, which was sports specific. And now we're talking about athletes using their platform on the educational side of things, which is pretty cool.
Okay. Now, Marquise is up at 38th and Chicago Avenue. And that's his neighborhood. And so you move around the neighborhood asking, you build all sorts of relationships around that, don't you, Marquise?
That is correct. I call myself the tourist interrupter. Just
The
because
what?
we know that
The what?
tourist interrupter. The tourist interrupter. You hear me?
Say it
Can you hear
again.
me? I
Say
said
it
the
again.
tourist interrupter.
Can
you hear me
somebody
now?
interpret? What is that?
You know, like a tourist that goes out of town and visits and tourists. The tourist interrupter.
Tourists? Are you saying tourists, like a tour guide, a tourist interrupter?
Yes. And I say that because that's not your typical tourist attraction. But we know that a lot of people from all over the world are coming to see it. I encourage people to actually get to know the community. I mean, we should come more in George Floyd and other people that have lost their lives to systemic racism and police brutality. But if we're not really making connections with the people, we're doing ourselves a disservice. And I say this because the locals could care less about all the people that are coming over here, especially the ones that are struggling with mental health, homelessness, and issues. How does the George Floyd Memorial benefit them? They're saying. And it hit all the way home when I was talking to a group of people, and a lady from New Orleans was sitting there just listening to what I was talking about. She literally started crying, and she said, I remember when Hurricane Katrina came, and we had just lost everything. And it was busloads of people coming over there taking pictures and stuff like that, but not one of them did they stop to see what was up with the people. And I said, that makes sense. I mean, that's kind of my message, because the tourism part helps nobody, especially if we're not getting to know people and patronizing the businesses. And we're just coming over as tourists, just taking pictures and selfies and looking at our pain. I don't see how that helps anything. That's my take. The tourist interrupter.
Okay, a tourist instructor? Interrupter?
Yes.
Okay. Interesting. Angie, you use the classroom, don't you? You're a teacher. She's a school teacher.
Yes, I'm a middle school teacher.
And so you use the classroom to get to know your kids and your people.
Yes.
Go out from there.
Yep.
What do you think the mental health component is of your classroom, your kids?
I think, like, personally, that my 8th graders are the ones that struggle the most, the ones who have had a lot of difficulty and a lot of change from in-person to online to distance learning to hybrid. And they're the ones that are struggling the most right now with mental health and change and being in the classroom. So I think the mental health aspect is it's a really big factor. So I try to remind myself that grades aren't everything, that relationships are, and to be more understanding.
Okay. Did you take the ACE test today?
I don't think I did that one.
Okay, so you weren't on when we were doing that.
No.
Okay. That's an interesting one because it's an interesting tool.
Okay.
Yeah. Look it up and what on the program here.
Okay.
Dejan? Are you on?
I'm here.
Feedback to us how you work this. How do you listen to people? How do you get to know people?
Well, for me, I do hair and makeup, so I encounter a lot of women from all walks of life and going through, different things. And I am, spending this one-on-one time with them to kind of connect with them. I always try to find some sort of like connection, and just kind of gives me opportunity to speak into their lives and encourage them, because I've, met with women that are, getting hair and makeup done, going to a funeral, just had a miscarriage, or just a lot of different things that is going on. So just, I take that time and I try to be really intentional and very attentive to what they're saying and just use that to encourage them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you can talk to them and ask them all sorts of questions as you're
Right.
doing their hair.
Exactly. Yeah. Like one time I had a woman, I was doing hair and makeup, and she was just going through a hard time. And, you can see it, on her, and just started asking her some questions and just speaking into her. And, she ended up crying or, tearing up. And for me, in a way, that's like my ministry. That's a way that I'm able to, make them feel beautiful on the outside and confident in speaking to them, but also speak into who they are and who God has made them and created them to be. So, yeah.
Okay. Now, Nellie, you want to see businesses be successful.
Okay, so I need a little translator about with Kenneth, please. Can you help me, please?
Yeah.
Thank you. Él me dice que, disculpa.
Art, can you repeat your question?
Pasa que me perdí.
What I know her mission of the radio station. She wants businesses to be successful.
Él dice que él sabe que el deseo de su radio es para que los negocios, digamos, sobresalen en la comunidad. Y él quiere que usted hable más de eso, de cómo haces eso.
How does she get to know their business?
I think she might have.
Ok, lo primero que yo hago, digo entonces, ok,
Yeah.
lo primero que yo hago, por supuesto, ok, aló, ¿me escuchas, Kenneth?
Ahora sí.
Ok, lo primero que yo hago, pido una reunión con ellos, por supuesto con el negocio, escucho cuál es su necesidad en este caso, ¿no? Y por supuesto me adapto a la necesidad del cliente, le doy recomendaciones de cómo hacer para expandir su negocio o cómo hacerlo conocido entre la comunidad. ¿Cómo lo hago? Bueno, a través de la plataforma de la radio que yo tengo.
Sí. So she said when she talks to different businesses in the community, she gets together with people, she meets with them, she discusses with them what like their needs are as a business and different things like that. And she tries to provide different ways to help them. And one of those is obviously through like promotion through her radio. So yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you. I'm gonna try to wrap this up in a little bit here for a minute, because we're talking about mental health, and we're talking about my having troubles because of my background and how I'm going to work my way through this. One of the things that I used a lot is the self-esteem bucket. And I showed you that bucket that's around our neck. And every time I get a compliment, it goes into the bucket. And I want to see the bucket filled. But every time I get a criticism, it takes 7 of those out. And so the question is, where is my self-esteem bucket? And that's a very important question to ask people. Now, let me just share a story. I was sitting on my back porch, 2 blocks from here, sitting on my back porch, watching a woman push her child across the street in a carriage. And as she's going across the street, she's yelling at the kids. And allow me to just tell you what she said. Shut up, you goddamn motherfucker. Can't you keep your mouth shut? Can't you ever keep your mouth shut? Shut up. Now that's outside. What's it like in the house? What's it like in the house when everything's going down? Now I'm asking you, what's the state of the self-esteem bucket of that child? Is that a full bucket? Now, I'm just going to continue because this is my neighborhood. And 80% of the families, when we moved in, were father absent. Now, in a father absent home, there's usually not a table where people sit and eat. They don't eat breakfast together and they don't eat dinner together. They come in, they grab what they can and go to the front of the TV, or they go to their bedroom, or they go in front of they go someplace alone. So there isn't dialogue and a flow of meaning between people. There's shaming, there's criticism, there's yelling, there's name calling. Am I making sense? Now in dialogue and affirmation, you put stuff in the self-esteem bucket. You put nice things in there. If you don't have that, you're taking it out. So the question is, of every one of us, if you were to take your self-esteem bucket, would it be full? Would it be half full? Would it be empty? So the question is to share where your self-esteem bucket is now. I'm not asking you that right now. I'm just saying, isn't that an interesting question to ask somebody? And then, how can I build a fellowship or a relationship with that person, or a fellowship of people who are putting into the self-esteem bucket and building each other up? How can I get my family to do that? Well, one of the things we did in our house, I'll just share this with you. My wife and I have had a date night every Friday night, our whole marriage life. We go out for a date every Friday night. And every Monday night, no, the kids couldn't do anything because we had a family night. And we went down to the basement and played games and had a whole bunch of things that we were doing as a family. And then in the summertime, we would take a 3-week trip someplace across the United States as a family. We'd go on a vacation at the end of the summer because we ran summer programs. And we did things together. We always ate dinner together. And we always asked, how did it go today? And talk about things out of the day. And then we'd affirm as we go along. Am I making sense? Does this make sense? And so how do I start with me and my family, and then how do I build a fellowship, and then how do I build relationships, and how can I help others to do that too? Feedback. Is this helpful? Does it make sense? Is it important? Isn't this transformational? In a world of real serious mental health, to have a tool like the ACE test to give to a person and ask them the questions and just see where they are and then talk about it, if you build trust. To the self-esteem bucket, to the starting the question, where you from originally, to what did you do next, and what did you do next, and what did you do next, and where'd you go to school, what was your family like, what was your background like? These are questions that get at us. After I've gotten at myself, get at us, to get us information to help people. Okay? Well, thank you for today. Thank you for the time together. I hope it's helpful. I want to remind you that on the 13th of October, we are going to be here live in person at 6:30 in the morning. Not you, Brian. There'll be a Zoom. It's the Minnesota Prayer Breakfast. And the whole theme of the prayer breakfast is recovery and how to recover from addictions. And so that's going to be a very interesting time. It's going to go from 7 to 8:30. We're going to have a group of people here at the hub across the street, and we're going to gather business people, rising community leaders, different kinds of folks. Some of you are coming up and coming in, and we'll be here on the 13th. Next week, we'll be here at 11 o'clock on Thursday. Okay? Any further thoughts on today or what you would like to share?
This was helpful. Thank you.
Is it?
Yes.
Good. Takes reflection. Because I have to think about these things. Yeah. And I have to think about what I came from and how I can help understand where other people have come from and how we can help heal the hurt, because there's a lot of hurt. Heal the hurt. And we cover hurt with all sorts of things. I dress myself up to look nice. I have a phony smile. I am successful. So I define my successes, and that helps me get a self-image. I'm just saying, it's just interesting. And you know that successful athletes, talent will get you to the top, but character will keep you there. So just being first place, just being a pro, just being a star doesn't make you healthy, right? Wow. Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. We'll
Thanks, Art.
see you.
Thanks,
Yes.
Art.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be in touch. By the way, I still want to do those phone calls. I have that, we put that little thing together for phoning, because today's Thursday. On Friday, we're going to meet with, I was going to meet with Travis at 2:30.
I think I had 2:45, Art, but 2:30 would still, 2:30
No,
would still work.
250.
That sounds better. Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
what it was. Yeah.
Angie at 3:40, Joshua at 3:15, and then Monday and Tuesday. And I'll go back to you and I'll go over that with you, okay? So we just grab some time to catch up.
Awesome.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah. Take care.
So after I. Hold on. Don't put the pot in the sink, you still leave it.